Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really cutting through the noise.
Yeah.
We're looking at the most consequential strategic attack on Kyiv this year.
That terrifying pre-dawn barrage on November 29th, 2025.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's not just about the immediate destruction. It's about the massive, really world-altering consequences that just spiraled out from that single launch.
That's right. I mean, we're looking at how this one strike created a shockwave, a massive one.
Across 4 different spheres, right?
Military strategy, global economic stability, diplomatic alliances, and of course, the humanitarian crisis. Our sources, which, they blend everything from frontline reports to intelligence leaks, they show that this war has entered a new and, I think, deeply destabilizing phase.
So our mission today is to give you that shortcut to help you get truly well-informed. We're going to connect the dots. How does a cold morning strike on an electrical substation in Kyiv instantly become a lever? A lever used in these high-stakes negotiations in Washington, Berlin, Moscow, even Abu Dhabi.
Well, to do that, we have to understand the tactical catalyst first. The scale and the timing of this assault. They were anything but random.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's late November 2025.
Right.
Temperatures are hovering near freezing. The people in Kyiv, they're bracing for a deep winter, and then this happens. A brutal reminder of Russia's strategy.
And President Zelensky confirmed the scale. It was just staggering.
We're talking nearly 600 drones.
600. And on top of that, roughly 36 missiles, all unleashed on the capital and the surrounding regions.
And the targeting, as you said, was not random.
No, absolutely not. The specifics are crucial here. They weren't just hitting buildings. They were carrying out these systemized attacks on energy infrastructure.
So substations, heating facilities.
Precisely. In the Kyiv Oblast, this whole strategy, it's built on turning the unforgiving Ukrainian winter, the cold, the darkness, into an active military weapon. It's a psychological siege.
And what does that look like on the ground? I mean, for the people living there.
It looks like deliberate cruelty. It's aimed at breaking the civilian will to fight.
And this isn't the first time.
Not at all. Historically, Russia has damaged or destroyed nearly 50% of Ukraine's power generation capacity since the war began. This attack just compounded that damage severely.
So after this November 29th assault, what was the immediate result?
Over 500,000 residents in Kyiv Oblast alone were just plunged into blackouts.
Which means no heat, no power.
An immense strain on hospitals. The goal is simple, really. Amplify the suffering enough to force Kyiv to the negotiating table.
But on Russia's terms.
On Russia's terms.
It's all based on this idea that Ukraine will just buckle under the pressure. But what was their response? I mean, how effective could they be against that sheer volume?
Their air defenses, they performed remarkably well under just intense pressure.
What are the numbers on that?
Ukraine claimed to have downed over 70% of the incoming threats.
That's incredible.
It is, and it's thanks in large part to those Western-supplied systems, things like the Patriot missile batteries. That capability is vital. It prevents a total collapse.
But Ukraine did more than just defend, right? They hit back.
Immediately, deep into Russian territory.
And that defiance, that's key.
It is. It's key for morale, for international support. We saw retaliatory strikes penetrate Rostov Oblast and other regions.
And that serves 2 purposes, I imagine.
It does. First, it signals that Ukraine still has significant long-range military capability, even while they're absorbing these massive strikes. And second, it forces Russian commanders to dedicate resources to homeland defense.
Instead of just focusing on the front lines in Ukraine.
Exactly. It's a necessary, very high-cost chess move. And when we look at this conflict, the impact, it always flows outward. It always does. And the first place it hits is the financial world.
Right.
And what's fascinating here is how immediately and how, violently the global markets reacted.
We saw natural gas futures surge by up to 15%.
In a single trading session.
Across exchanges from London all the way to New York. Why? I mean, why such a volatile spike based on an attack that only directly affected Ukraine?
It really comes down to perceived risk and interconnected infrastructure.
Okay.
You see, Ukraine's energy grid isn't purely domestic. It's a critical transit hub for gas and electricity that flows right across Europe.
So when a massive strike targets that hub,
the market prices in the risk of supply disruption immediately. A 15% surge means that the instability from a missile strike in Kyiv is translating directly into higher heating bills for businesses and families all across the European continent.
It makes the war feel very, very immediate, even thousands of miles away.
It does.
So the attack is a military strategy, but it's also an economic siege weapon against the West.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that siege weapon has a severe humanitarian consequence. It could destabilize all the neighboring countries.
The economic shock just blends right into a looming humanitarian crisis.
It does. The cold truth is that if these blackouts continue, especially as winter deepens, aid organizations are projecting a catastrophic outcome.
How catastrophic?
Up to 1 million more displaced persons could flood into neighboring countries. We're talking primarily Poland and Romania.
And explain the mechanism there. It's not just people running from the fighting anymore, is it?
No, it's about pure survival. When your infrastructure fails, when your water pipes freeze, when hospitals can't run essential life support, the choice is simple.
Stay and freeze or move.
Exactly. These blackouts are creating an unlivable environment. They're pushing a new wave of refugees, many of whom are elderly or infirm, into regions that are already struggling to support the initial waves from 2022.
It's a direct strain on the EU's resources and its political cohesion.
A direct strain. And meanwhile, you have NATO on high alert.
Watching every single piece of debris.
The tension is immense. NATO immediately scrambled fighter jets from bases in the Baltic states and Poland. The fear is palpable.
They're monitoring for any stray projectile.
Intensely. We've seen this before, where missiles have accidentally strayed into Polish airspace. The highest strategic risk for the alliance is that one of these 600 drones, or 36 missiles, accidentally hits NATO territory.
Which would immediately invoke Article 5.
The Mutual Defense Clause, correct. Secretary General Rutte convened urgent virtual sessions, not just to show solidarity, but to emphasize hypervigilance while avoiding any perceived provocation.
They are walking a razor-thin line.
Between deterring Russia and accidentally stumbling into a direct confrontation.
But you could argue that the greatest damage from this barrage wasn't physical, it was diplomatic.
Oh, absolutely. This strike occurred precisely when the West was trying to hash out a unified peace framework. And this attack, it just exploited every single fault line.
This is where we need to look at those controversial U.S. proposals.
We do. We first heard whispers of what was reportedly former President Trump's 28-point plan, a framework that was, instantly incendiary.
Because it suggested Ukraine might be compelled to formally cede territory.
Additional eastern territories, cap its military size, and potentially delay NATO membership indefinitely.
Which, of course, was met with immediate European fury.
Yeah.
So how did those ideas evolve into the later 19-point plan, and what was in it that Europe still found so objectionable?
Well, the original plan was just seen as rewarding aggression. So following these reported U.S.-Russia discussions in places like Abu Dhabi, the plan was refined into this 19-point framework.
But it still had problems.
Big problems. Crucially, the 19-point plan, it softened the requirement to immediately cede more territory, but it retained severe caps on Ukraine's future military development. And it offered security pacts that just fell far short of a true NATO guarantee.
So it seems like the U.S. was focused on getting a rapid ceasefire.
That's right.
While Europe was insisting on long-term security.
Exactly. European leaders, Germany, France, the UK, they swiftly countered. They demanded stronger, clearer security guarantees and a full restoration of pre-2022 borders.
German Chancellor Scholz is pretty blunt about it.
He was. He likened the U.S. proposal to building a house on shifting sands. He argued that accepting a quick, weak deal would only guarantee a future conflict and would fundamentally undermine Europe's entire security architecture.
And the UK, under Prime Minister Starmer, they pushed for ironclad sanctions, massive military aid commitments.
All to prevent this from turning into an endless, frozen conflict.
And that profound strategic rift, that's what Russia capitalizes on.
That's the crack they exploit, and it's mirrored by fractures within Ukraine itself. This is where the issue of corruption reemerged with disastrous timing.
We saw the resignation of Andrei Yermak,
the influential head of the presidential office,
amid these mounting corruption allegations regarding military procurement deals. Why is his departure such a seismic event right now?
Well, Yermak was seen as Zelensky's indispensable right-hand man. He managed everything from diplomatic channels to the flow of military aid. His resignation, driven by the sheer scale of the scandal. We're talking over 1,500 corruption cases in the defense sector since 2022.
It undermines faith in Kyiv.
At the exact moment they need maximum Western support. It gives donors, particularly the U.S. Congress, legitimate pause about where the over $300 billion in combined aid is really going.
And while the alliance is struggling with this internal crisis of faith, external forces are actively leveraging the fragmentation.
You see this most clearly with Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban. He travels to Moscow, discusses discounted gas imports, and then comes back and uses his leverage to veto $6.5 billion in crucial EU aid for Ukraine.
And Moscow gains immediate tactical leverage.
They don't have to break the alliance. They just have to fund the cracks that are already there. Russia's swift rejection of even that refined 19-point peace plan as unrealistic, that just capitalizes on this appearance of Western fragmentation.
Which brings us to the shadow war. The economic levers, the back-channel deals being pulled completely out of public sight.
This is where the strategy moves beyond missiles and into cold, hard cash.
The cost to Europe has just been staggering.
It has. Russia's manipulation of energy supply since 2022, it's cost the EU an estimated €1 trillion in additional energy expenses by 2025.
Trillion euros.
It's a massive, silent wealth transfer achieved without any direct military engagement with NATO.
And that economic siege is accompanied by a cyber front.
Absolutely. Russian state-linked groups, notably Sandworm, are intensifying their hybrid operations. They aren't just targeting Ukraine's energy grids anymore.
They're probing European systems.
Constantly. In Poland, in Germany. This is cyber reconnaissance. They are testing vulnerabilities in case the conflict escalates, and they need to achieve widespread disruption inside NATO borders.
Okay, now let's talk about the most explosive detail from our sources, the back-channel business talks.
A crucial, high-impact nugget
aimed at sweetening a peace deal.
That's right. Reports detailed business enticements involving figures like the real estate mogul Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They were reportedly connecting with Russian financiers, including Kirill Dmitriev.
And he's a key figure in Russia's sovereign wealth fund.
He is. And his involvement suggests the focus here is less about diplomacy and more about high-level economic normalization.
So what does that mean in real terms?
It could mean real estate deals, commodity deals, all linked to sanctions relief. This signals an attempt to craft a peace deal based not on justice or security, but on mutual commercial benefit.
Using Ukraine's future as a bargaining chip.
To unlock vast financial opportunities for those involved, it prioritizes financial incentives over geopolitical principles, a powerful lever to influence policy.
And all of this is happening far above the heads of the people who are actually suffering on the ground. Let's make that direct link between this political failure and the human reality.
The humanitarian abyss deepens precisely because these deals remain unresolved. The blackouts, they turn homes into what sources called icy vaults, sub-zero temperatures.
Water supplies freeze.
Children are breathing air that is literally making them sick. This engineered suffering has led to over 14 million people requiring aid.
The psychological toll must be devastating.
It is. Anxiety and depression rates have surged by 25% in affected areas.
And the threat of another massive refugee surge just hangs over Europe.
The aid organizations, they project another wave. Up to 2 million refugees could surge toward Europe by early 2026 if these attacks on heating and power continue through the winter. That's a direct, calculated result of this military strategy.
It's clear the global order is teetering. We're at a moment of maximum risk.
We really are. Russia is employing a brutal attrition strategy. They're sustaining, 1,000 daily casualties while betting that Western patience will run out first.
They're outlasting the commitment.
And they're escalating their tactics. We're seeing them deploy these thermite-laden drones that burn infrastructure at temperatures over 2,000 degrees Celsius. It ensures maximum unrepairable damage.
So our sources point to 3 primary horizons for how this conflict could end. Let's start with Horizon 1. The negotiated settlement.
This is the outcome where sometime in mid-2026, intense U.S. pressure leads to a forced deal.
What would that look like?
Ukraine would likely have to formally concede limited territory, the territory Russia currently occupies, in exchange for security pacts that fall short of full NATO membership.
And the aid package would be massive.
The World Bank estimates it could top $500 billion, but the risk is that internal Western divisions prevent that aid from ever fully materializing.
Leaving Ukraine stabilized but impoverished.
Exactly.
Okay, what about Horizon 2? Prolonged stalemate.
Well, if the political divisions we've been talking about, the U.S.-Europe rift, the corruption in Kyiv, if they deepen and aid dwindles, Russia can sustain this effort for another 2 years.
And that leads to a frozen conflict.
A frozen conflict that transforms Eastern Europe. You'd see heightened permanent militarization in the Baltics and Poland. They would become these expensive, fortified frontiers, locked in a long Cold War with no end in sight.
And the final, most worrying prospect. Horizon 3. Russian gains.
This outcome is driven by the success of that intensified winter campaign we've been discussing, forcing capitulation. Borders are redrawn to encompass 20% of Ukraine's pre-2022 territory.
And the global consequence of that.
Devastating. It would embolden authoritarian regimes across the world. It would demonstrate that territorial aggression pays off if the opposing coalition fractures.
So after tracking this one midnight strike through global finance, diplomacy, what's the core unavoidable lesson here?
The verdict on the post-Cold War era is just sobering. The illusion of inviolable borders, of unbreakable alliances, it's shattered. The West's credibility has been eroded not just by Russian action, but by its own internal indecision.
And the lesson for smaller nations watching.
For Estonia, for Georgia, for Moldova, the lesson is that no guarantee is truly ironclad. They have to focus on building self-reliant strength, resilience, diversifying partnerships, because the shield offered today can be withdrawn tomorrow by a single election or a single veto.
The age of uncomfortable truths has clearly arrived. We began by looking at a massive aerial barrage. We tracked the immediate 15% surge in global gas prices, dissected the profound political rift running through NATO, and analyzed the high-stakes back-channel and deals that could decide the fate of Ukraine. We hope this deep dive gave you the context, the crucial insights that get lost in the noise of daily reporting.
We have seen that the age of comfortable assumptions is, well, it's undeniably over. The age of cold, clear choices has begun. And, history is being written not in the thunder of missiles, but in the silence that follows. The silence of an unlit apartment where a child lights a candle and asks when the light will return. The core question for the global order remains. If the world cannot stabilize this crisis now, when confronted by that silence, what further concessions will our world be forced to make tomorrow? That is the question we leave you to explore.